The Lewis gun, a game changer from a doctor's dream to a battlefield legend. Picture this. It's the early 1900s, and the world's on the brink of massive change. The air's thick with tension, and war's just around the corner. In the middle of all this, the Lewis gun bursts onto the scene, a weapon that becomes a legend. This isn't just a story about metal and bullets. It's a tale of ambition, ingenuity, and the economic battles that shaped the modern world. Let's dive into this epic saga, from a doctor's wild idea to a gun that changed the game in wars across the globe. I've always been fascinated by stories like this, ones where a single invention can shift the course of history. The Lewis gun isn't just a piece of hardware. It's a symbol of an era when technology and warfare were locked in a dance that defined the 20th century. When I first heard about this gun as a kid, I thought, man, with a barrel that chunky, what kind of monster bullets does it shoot? Spoiler alert, the bullets are just standard rifle rounds. But stick with me because this story is a wild ride. The Lewis gun story kicks off with a guy named Samuel Neil McClean. He was a doctor trained to save lives with a scalpel. But at some point, McClean decided that designing weapons was his true calling. Sounds odd, right? Back then, though, creating cutting-edge weapons wasn't just about destruction. It was about pushing boundaries, being part of progress. It was like being the Elon Musk of the early 1900s, but with guns instead of rockets. In 1900, McClean started his own weapons company. He was brimming with ideas, ready to invent something big. By 1911, he'd come up with a prototype, a heavy machine gun with water cooling and gas-operated mechanics. It was his first shot at greatness. But here's the catch. His design was rough around the edges, and he didn't have the cash to polish it. Debts piled up, and McClean had to sell his company and patents to pay them off. His dream fizzled out before it could take off. Enter Isaac Newton Lewis, the man who'd make the gun a legend. Unlike McClean, Lewis was a military guy, not a doctor. He knew I'd get things done. He saw potential in McClean's design, but spotted its flaws right away. Water cooling? Too clunky. Lewis switched it to air cooling and made a bunch of other tweaks. The result was a game changer, a gun that worked like a charm. But McClean wasn't happy. In 1920, he sued Lewis, claiming he deserved a cut of the profits. Spoiler, he lost. It's a classic lesson. Ideas are only half the battle. You got to make them happen. McClean and Lewis's story hits home for me. How many brilliant ideas die because of bad timing, no funding, or just plain bad luck? McClean had the spark, but Lewis had the grit to turn it into something real. It's like today's startup world. Think of all the apps or gadgets that could have been the next big thing, but never made it. You need vision, sure, but you also need execution. It makes you wonder, what's the next big idea waiting to break through? Here's a twist. Even though the Lewis gun was born in America, it's often called a British weapon. Why? Because the U.S. military didn't bite when Lewis pitched it to them. Maybe they had too many other options, or maybe they just didn't see the potential. Frustrated, Lewis packed his bags and headed to Europe. First stop, Belgium, where he set up a company called Arms Automatique Lewis. Then he moved on to Great Britain, where he struck gold. In England, the Birmingham Small Arms Company, BSA, saw what Lewis was offering and ran with it. They ironed out the kinks and started cranking out Lewis guns like nobody's business. Belgium was the first to adopt the gun officially, but the Brits made it famous. Then came the First World War, and the Lewis gun became a star on the battlefield. Even the Russian Empire got in on the action. In 1913, they bought a few Lewis guns for testing. They didn't have the time or resources to build their own. So when the war kicked off, they ordered thousands from the US and Britain. By the end of 1917, Russia had received 9,600 American-made Lewis guns and 1,860 from Britain. The economic angle. The arms race of the early 20th century. To get why the Lewis gun was such a big deal, let's zoom out and look at the economy back then. The early 1900s were all about industrialization. Countries like Britain, Germany, and the U.S. were pouring money into their militaries, gearing up for what everyone knew was coming. The global arms market was worth hundreds of millions of dollars, billions in today's money. Britain, a powerhouse at the time, was investing heavily in new weapons to stay ahead. BSA wasn't just making guns. They were churning out motorcycles, cars, and even bicycles. They were like the General Motors of the weapons world. For Russia, buying Lewis guns was a practical move. Building their own would have taken too long and cost too much, especially with war looming. Each Lewis gun cost about $200, roughly $5,000 today. Not cheap, but worth it when you're trying to hold the line. The First World War was the Lewis gun's proving ground. It was a beast, used by everyone from British soldiers to Russian troops. During Russia's Civil War, it popped up everywhere, with the whites, the reds, even the greens. If you've read Quiet Flows the Dawn by Mikhail Sholokhov, you'll remember scenes where the Lewis gun steals the show. There's this one gut-wrenching moment where a communist gunner gets killed because he won't let go of his Lewis gun. That's not just fiction. It's the kind of loyalty this weapon inspired. What made the Lewis gun so special? Versatility. You could carry it as a light machine gun or mount it on a tripod for heavy-duty action. With a firing rate of 500 to 600 rounds per minute, it could lay down serious firepower. Its disc magazines held either 47 or 97 rounds, giving soldiers plenty of ammo before reloading. But it wasn't perfect. The Lewis gun was pricey, and its complex design made field repairs a headache. Those flaws kept it from being as widespread as it could have been, but the soldiers who used it swore by its reliability and punch. How it worked? A peek under the hood. Let's get nerdy for a second and talk tech. The Lewis gun's standout feature was its cooling system. A big metal shroud stuck out past the barrel, creating an ejector effect. When the gun fired, the escaping gases pulled cool air through the shroud, keeping the barrel from overheating. Fun fact, this same idea is used in modern Russian machine guns like the Pecheneg. The gun's mechanics were groundbreaking for the time. It used the energy from the fired bullet's gases, which were vented through a hole in the barrel. Those gases pushed a piston, which moved the bolt and kept the gun cycling. The bolt locked by rotating and a unique flat spring, think of an old-school record player, kept everything moving smoothly. The disc magazines were another cool feature. Instead of springs, they use a lever with a curved slot to feed rounds. The Lewis gun came in different flavors depending on who was using it. The British version fired the 303 British round, 7.71 millimeters. The American version used the 30-06 Springfield, 7.62 by 63 millimeters. For Russia, it was chambered for the Mosin rifle round, 7.62 by 54 millimeters. Chapter 4. Isaac Lewis, the man behind the gun. Isaac Lewis wasn't just a one-hit wonder. Born in 1858 in New Salem, Pennsylvania, he graduated from West Point and became an expert in mechanics and electrical engineering. He wasn't just about guns. He invented a stopwatch, a rangefinder for coastal defenses, and even a windmill-powered car lighting system. Talk about a Renaissance man. Lewis left the Army in 1913, maybe for health reasons, or maybe because he wanted to chase his dreams as an inventor. He started tinkering with McClean's design before he even left the service, betting that a better gun could open doors. When the U.S. military passed on his idea, he took it overseas. By 1915, the U.S. finally woke up and bought a license to produce Lewis guns, but by then, Lewis was already making waves in Europe. The Lewis gun stayed in the game through the Second World War. You'd find it in arsenals with allies and even with enemies. But newer, more advanced guns eventually took over. Still, the Lewis gun left its mark as one of the most iconic weapons of its time. It's not just about the gun itself. It's about the people behind it. McClean's dream, Lewis's hustle, and the soldiers who carried it into battle. It's a story of what happens when innovation meets determination. Wrapping up, lessons from the past. The Lewis gun teaches us that success is about more than just a good idea. McClean had the vision, but couldn't follow through. Lewis took that vision and ran with it, proving that execution is everything. Whether you're building a gun, an app, or a business, it's the same deal. Dream big, but make it happen. What's your take on this story? Got a big idea you're itching to bring to life? Drop in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more epic stories about inventions that change the world.